YouTube fam, welcome back to the Hitchhiker's Guide to Cancer. This is actually day 135. Technically, it's Thursday, June 16th, but I'm actually going to discuss what happened on day 135, which was on June 14th, 2 days ago on Tuesday. I had visited Duke, which I mentioned before that I had to head down to Duke. They wanted to see me, my neuro-oncologist wanted to see me regarding my most recent MRI scan. Something came up. So let me back this up and sort of explain how I ended up down there in the first place. So the week prior, so Wednesday, June 1st, I had my MRI scheduled locally here in Baltimore at Johns Hopkins. Had the MRI in the morning. 2 hours later, I scheduled to meet with Hopkins oncologist to review the MRI. That was the story of when I almost fought him, but that's go visit that video if you want to know more about that. Regardless, I talked to him. He reviewed the MRI with me, and basically they didn't see anything that was of an issue in that MRI. So essentially, they sent me home, said things look good. We'll see you in 2 months, and I sort of kept with status quo. And that meant that I began my third round of chemo. So that third round of chemo had started right after I got the thumbs up from the doc at Hopkins. This is Wednesday. We end up sending the MRI down to Duke, who's my primary team. And I get a message from Duke the very next day on Thursday that essentially says, Christian, the doc wants to see you on Tuesday down in Raleigh. And so that's not great news. Like, you don't want to hear a doc telling you need to fly down almost immediately for a meeting in a few days. So I spoke with sort of my point person the next day on Friday at Duke, and she was sort of discussing what was going on, explained, that the neuro-oncologist wanted to talk about something he saw in the scan. And my first thought was like, okay, is this serious or not? And based on our conversation, I didn't get a sense that it was grave, but obviously it was urgent that I needed to go down there. So she had, I clarified that I live in Baltimore. This isn't a short drive. And they're like, yeah, we understand. We definitely need to see you ASAP. So I immediately booked a flight to go down to Raleigh for the following Tuesday, which was 2 days ago. 9 a.m. appointment, get there in the morning, meet with the team for some testing. So they do some cognitive motor skills testing. All that went well. No concerns surrounding that as far as they knew. Met with the neuro-oncologist, and basically the long of the short of it was they found a second tumor. So they found a small second tumor above my right ear. My first tumor is on my right hemisphere. This tumor is also in my right hemisphere. So they're on the same side of my brain. There wasn't anything that I've experienced that would have been indicative of me having a second tumor, but only because we have these continual MRIs, did they catch it. So the good news is that the second tumor was caught early, so it's small. The bad news is you don't want to hear that you have a second tumor. So I have a follow-up call with Duke, just because there's a lot of questions that come from this. So there may be a lot of questions that you guys ask that I may not have the answer for, but I actually want to know the questions that you may have, because I need to understand sort of all the aspects of this next part. And so I know some of you have been hesitant to ask me questions because it might overwhelm me or whatever. This is actually a really good place to ask questions, because I probably won't have the answer, but it will give me things to think about that I may not be thinking about at this moment. So that's where we're at. Just to give you guys a heads up, sort of where my headspace is at. Obviously, like I said, not great news. However, it is what it is. Like, it's hard to wrap your head around. I think because I haven't had any side effects. It hasn't really hit me like the reality of it. So it's not like before I had a seizure and then they located the tumor, which was scarier. It's more them identifying it, but saying nothing has really physically occurred to you, but here's this tumor. And what we know about grade fours are that they come back, they're severe and they're aggressive, and they come back aggressive. So even though it's small, doesn't mean that we shouldn't be worried about it. If anything, again, it increases the level of urgency behind this whole thing. But I think from a mental space, the really thing that's got me hung up is I felt prepared for things that would be happening moving forward. And I sort of planned out, okay, well, if A happens, do B, like whatever. And so I felt like I had a strategy based on a couple different situations. At no point in time did I consider getting a second tumor while I still had an existing tumor. In my mind, it was always manage this first tumor was the main thing. The other thought that would cross my mind that I would have to process was like, okay, well, when we remove this first tumor, we knew that there would be a second tumor after we reviewed it. We removed it. So it was like prevention of recurrence. Like, how do we push that out before the second one comes? Well, unfortunately, the news is the second one is here now. So I never crossed my mind. And that threw me off because I wasn't prepared for that bit of news. I felt like I've been preparing myself for different sets of news. So in a sense, I feel like I'm back to square one in a certain respect, because there's new information I have, and there's a lot of question marks, and I have to get questions I have answered to understand this and to understand sort of where we move forward. So it was frustrating, to be honest, a very frustrating situation, but I'm still here. Cognitively, other than me stumbling my words, I still feel like I'm improving. Physically, still feel like I'm improving. That's not going to be forever, but it's what's going on right now. So I felt good about that. I will say, as an aside, also, I was I was prepared. I've been having conversations about how I felt like we were getting comfortable. And so I was almost preparing myself like, hey, we could have things, sort of flipped on its head again, and things could be chaos again. So I was almost like realizing that we were getting very comfortable, and I knew there was nothing I can do, but I almost mentally prepared myself like, hey, don't forget you have this terminal illness. And so that eased the blow a little bit. So we wait. We have a follow-up meeting with my point person at Duke to answer any questions. Hopefully that will happen next week. That hasn't been scheduled yet, but I need to schedule it hopefully early next week. I'll have the updates on that information for you by the end of next week when I do my video. Let me see if there's anything else. Oh, in light of this new tumor, clearly my current treatment wasn't working. For lack of a better phrase, it wasn't working. So they're actually going to put me on a new type of chemo. So I have to wait 2 weeks for the existing chemo to run through my system. I stopped taking it immediately after Duke told me I needed to come down. They told me to cease my chemo. They're going to give me a new chemo, which is supposed to be more effective and pretty much the same pill form. I take it on a cadence, and then they're hoping that that's going to attack the second tumor as well as the first tumor, but we'll be able to shrink this second tumor. And that's really the goal. Like, we need to get this second tumor addressed immediately. The first tumor has been sort of the same in size. So focus on the second tumor to get back to the first tumor, and hopefully, and this should actually treat both of them. So that's the first thing, is my chemo is going to change. And I will begin that on June 24th. The new chemo, it's one pill every 6 weeks. That's it. The second piece that came out of that meeting was Duke now wants to see me every 6 weeks. So congratulations, my friends in Raleigh. You will be seeing me every 6 weeks. August 1st and August 2nd will be the next time I go down there. It'll be MRI number 4. Hopefully that's when we see that the second tumor is shrinking and the chemo is working. But until we have this under control, I'll be going down to Raleigh every 6 weeks. So 6 weeks from August 1st, I'll go back again for the next MRI, and we'll just keep monitoring it and treating it. So not great news. I've been getting a ton of calls, ton of texts, people asking me how the Duke treatment went. My apologies. I've been just exhausted as I've gotten back. So I've been resting a lot, but I'm back. And we're just going to take on this next chapter of the journey. This is just how it goes. And, you know, you take it one day at a time and do the best you can. I appreciate the support. I hope you guys remain optimistic and positive, because I am, and we take everything in stride. So love you guys, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.